What is up, everybody? Aaron the Dog back with breakdown 3 of 3 for the week. PFL Challenger Series 5 lightweight edition is on hand. And as always, my PFL cohort, Lucky Locks Picks, here with me to break it down. How you doing today, Lucky?
I'm doing well. We got lightweights on the go this week. Should be some good scraps on Friday night. Excited to get into it.
Yeah, let me once again. I swear half these times it starts and I forget to put my phone on silent. So that's now taken care of. But yeah, I'm excited about this. I think that it's pretty good slate. I get lightweights are probably hard to kind of hold down for an event like this where you're only offering. I guess now like it's official. They just offer one contract and only
Yeah, it's
one.
just one for
Yeah.
sure.
So I didn't know that. Like I guess until it caught on the last couple weeks, but so it's kind of tough there. I don't know, if they're maybe considering keeping some of these people for showcase fights along the way also. But either way, I think there's a lot of familiar faces, some really good gyms represented. We got Elevation, MMA Lab, City Kickboxing, and Novo Union. So good crop of lightweights here, hopefully, and the fights have been pretty good so far for the most part. I don't know what would be like my notable fight so far from the Challenger Series, though. I don't know if we've had that yet.
Yeah, I mean, I'm inclined to agree with you there. There's not one really that sticks out in my mind. I mean, maybe Delano Taylor and Mark Martin just because of the way that it ended.
Yeah,
Probably the most
okay.
memorable
So
one for me.
the eye
Yeah,
injury.
in terms of like one big banger fight, I don't know. I don't know if there's one that exactly comes to mind for me right now.
Yeah, not yet at least, but always appreciated. And yeah, I mean we got plenty of good fights. I called them cheap for only talking. I don't know what you're saying here, Visceral, but good to have you here as always, Visceral. And yeah, let's go ahead and get started here. We got 4 fights as always. Big week of MMA. We got CFFC tonight, which I have not done any tape on. I'll be honest, so I'm just going to enjoy it as a fan. I don't do that too often, or I don't. But yeah, if you have any thoughts on CFFC, you can let me know. Also, definitely check out SD Dumas tomorrow night on Icon Fighting on Fight Pass. Super talented, high quality prospect. I got to sit down with him with Fight Bananas a few weeks ago, and I think the guy is going to be in the UFC by the end of the year. So I'm really excited. 5-0 prospect, really fun guy to watch. So check that out. But yeah, we're going to get started here. It's the lightweight. So starting at lightweight, we have the Israeli Yanel Maz, I should say, taking on Dennis Hughes. No relation to any of the Matt Hughes or any of the above. I looked into it all, but yeah, we'll start by talking about Dennis Hughes, the 7-3 opponent here, taking on the Israeli Asamov. Dennis DJ Hughes, 7-3, 3 straight wins for him, fighting out of Gracie United Amite, which I'm not familiar with. Hasn't fought since December of last year with XFC. Got the win there. For the most part, obviously he trains with the Gracies. He is known for his grappling more so. Got the armbar in his last fight against a 2-2 opponent. Not too many notable opponents here for him. He did face Christian Lozen with Icon. It was a competitive fight. Christian just was kind of too long for him at points. And then even on the feet at points, Christian had some luck with the boxing, which you never really like to see out of a guy fighting Christian Lozen at any point, especially 2-3 years ago. And Dylan Mantello, who we saw, I think we saw him with Bellator a few weeks ago. And he's a pretty decent level of opponent. So he's lost to like decent level guys, for the most part. Looks to get the fight to where he can use his grappling. I don't really rate his stand-up too highly here. I know he has a couple of KOs, but I think that he's going to be pretty outmatched against Yanel. Yanel really impressed me in his last fight at CFFC against Ryan Rizzico, a hometown guy in Philadelphia, and he just gassed him out. I mean, he grounded, pounded him, and Lost the first round, competitive second round, and third round just overwhelmed him with the pressure and the cardio and the pace. Trains in Jersey, so he does train in the States, even though he's originally from Israel. And he's just a good cerebral guy. Reminds me of kind of like a Soren Bach type of fighter, just really good, solid everywhere, composed, fights a lot better than I think a 4-0, 5-0 record. So I feel like Asamov has a chance to put on a pretty good display here. So I like him all day. I think that he's got the advantage on the feet, and I think he can take him down and not be threatened with the submissions either. So I like Asamov, and hopefully get a finish, but hard to tell. It hasn't been a ton of finishes on the Challenger Series so far.
Yeah, this is, Ashmo's, man, that win over Ryan Risco on CFFC, that's a really nice win. I was pretty impressed by that. And honestly, the level of competition that he's faced at this point in his career has been reasonably solid. He's never fought an opponent that had a losing record so far. And one thing I like about him is the fact that he has faced a little bit of adversity in that fight with Risco. A lot of times you see these guys kind of just knock everyone out pretty easy, never really face anyone that's going to give them a real hard time. And then when they do get that matchup, they tend to fold up a little bit. But in that fight against Risco, he was able to face some adversity, had a tough first round, was able to grind at a 10-9 in the second, and then came on really strong in the third. And that's against a tough opponent. So this definitely isn't a guy who I think is going to go out there and quit when it gets tough. I know he's going to push through that. And that's kind of something that you worry about with this type of a prospect, but I don't have that worry with Ashmo's here. Hughes has some decent experience. I mean, he's got a lot of fights between pro and amateur. He's coming in on 3 straight wins. He's fought AJ Fletcher as an amateur, fought Christian Lotion, like you said. But it seems like when he does kind of take that step up in competition a little bit, he runs into a little bit of a wall. He doesn't happen to have the same amount of success that he kind of does sometimes against some of the lower ranked opponents, I guess. 86% finish rate, though. He's a serviceable striker, but really the grappling, like you said, is where he shines. His arm bars are really good. Triangles are also really good. And we've seen him finish both of those subs in the cage. Really good with that triangle, especially, that I've noticed. But I just think that Ashmos is the better fighter here. I think he's the better striker. I think the grappling can be competitive in the scrambles and the exchanges, but I just see Ashmos kind of being able to have good position, kind of getting threatened by submissions, but able to escape and kind of keeping the dominant positions in those exchanges. So I'm going to go with Ashmos to win this one.
Yeah, he's the biggest favorite on the card, minus 330 currently. Plus 250 on Dennis Hughes. I'm not going to say go overboard with that, obviously, but I do think he's about 250 to 300 favorite. So I think it's about right here. I do. I think he's should take this one. We'll move on to the next fight. This next fight, I think, is the closest fight of the night. I've definitely gone back and forth on these two. I really like Arud Pagozian, first and foremost. Just really big fan of him. He's very exciting, always testing himself. And Michael Dufort, or Dufort, is also very, very good. Tested himself against some really high-level talent. His fight with Jesse Ronson was really fun to go back and watch. Split decision there. But, I think it's one of those where it's not bad that he was on the shorter end of the stick. I think he can shore up some of the holes that kind of caused that fight to be closer. And Jesse Ronson's looked pretty good in the UFC, so in the second go-around. So I don't see too much shame there. With Arut, prime time, he's 9-3, and he is kind of one of these guys, not exactly similar to Dennis Hughes, but in a similar way where it's like when he takes that step up, it seems to be there's just that certain step that is a little bit too high for him each time. And he looks really good against guys that aren't on his level. To put it simply, a lot of really impressive finishes. 3 straight wins fighting on Team Elevation, which I think is a great camp. And coming off, when he finished Joshua Jones really quickly with put him out with those elbows where Jones was just chilling on the side trying for that takedown. And Joshua Jones just headlined a LFA. What was it, an LFA? I don't even remember.
He was supposed to headline, but he missed weight and he got replaced. Yeah, right,
exactly. And so this, I think that was the last time Joshua Jones made it to lightweight was back in 2019. But it's one of his losses was against Dominic Clark, and it was a fight where he lost due to an illegal knee, but I mean, it was a fight where he was getting kind of scrambled and rushed by Dominic Clark, and Dominic Clark's an okay wrestler. He made him look like a really, really good wrestler, like a tremendous wrestler. And that's, kind of how you beat a Root. Kenneth Glenn, a decision with Kenneth Glenn. I probably rate that higher than everybody, like anywhere, because even though Kenneth Glenn is 10-7, I think he's a very hard guy to get through a decision and win clearly and decisively with. And I mean, a Root definitely did there. I think he is getting much more well-rounded. And, it's just, again, the Darren, the fights where he gets grappled and taken to the ground, he gets submitted in these. Dominic Clark, I get it was an illegal knee, but he was getting, kind of overwhelmed a little bit with the grappling, and that's what Michael Dufort's going to do in this fight. So that's kind of my issue with this one. It's a really close one. Canadian Badass, he did lose his last fight out back in November of 2021. It was a Kyle Prepolak, former UFC fighter. Another split decision, and it was a legit split. Went back and watched it. Both his split decisions were very close fights. He's very competitive, well-rounded, likes to go to the grappling and the submissions with his takedowns, and I just think that he has a style that's very made to beat a guy like a Root. It's tough for me. I really like a Root, but I'm going with the matchup, and I'm going to take the slight dog and Michael Dufort here. I think he's going to implement that grappling, and there's a route to beat a Root, and I think that Michael can take it.
Yeah, Dufort, experienced guy, extensive amateur background as well. Had 10 amateur fights, was 7-3 there. He does have 2 knockouts, so he does a 100% finish rate as well. Throws a lot of kind of 1-2s and straight shots. I find his hands are a little bit rudimentary, but obviously the grappling is where he shines a lot more. This guy's a good finisher. He's got 6 submission wins and 6 submission finishes in amateur as well. And he's never been finished himself either, so he's a durable guy. He has good toughness, and he's a guy that you need to be careful about getting into a bad position with, because even if it's not really a dangerous position at the moment, he's making adjustments on the fly, and he can turn some of those positions into really dangerous positions, and he's a real submission threat. Pagozian is fighting on an elevation fight team. He was the 155-pound champ at LXF, obviously defeated Joshua Jones for that title in 2019, like we said, then had 2 fights on Fury, won both of those. Has some good wins back in the day as well. Javier Garcia is a win that I think has aged pretty well, coming into the spot on 3 straight. And yeah, when you run the tape, you can kind of tell who's going to have the advantage where. Obviously, Dufort has the grappling, and then Pagozian is probably going to have the advantage on the feet here. I think he's cleaner on the feet, throws feints, good head movement, decent range control. 2 of his last 3 fights, which were all wins, ended in a knockout. I don't see him finishing Dufort. I think Dufort is going to be a really difficult guy to get out of there. Grappling is kind of the question mark here, because 2 of his 3 losses came by submission, but they were both 4 and 6 years ago, and he has fought good jiu-jitsu players in the meantime and been okay. Obviously defeated Javier Garcia, has a pretty decent opportunistic sub game, and then Ken Glenn, like you mentioned, is a jiu-jitsu black belt, and he's a tough guy as well. I actually think he can be okay in the grappling here. He's going to have to be aware at all times, but I'm actually leaning to Pagozian here, training out of a really good gym, and I feel like he's faced decently solid competition on the regional circuit here, 5-1 over his last 6, and Dufort has faced some solid competition too over his last 4, but I just think on the feet Pagozian is going to be able to have his way, and I think that he's going to be okay enough in the grappling to win more minutes and win a decision here.
Fair enough. I think this is a totally fair disagreement. Dufort plus 100, minus 120 on a Root right now. It's very, very close. And it's one I'll probably just stay away from for the most part, as tempted as I am, and just kind of watch this one. I think it's a very good fight. And if I had to predict one fight that's going to result in a contract, I think it would be this one personally. But I just think these guys are the closest to being ready to compete with the PFL lightweights. But I don't really know how they determine the order. It's always kind of confusing. But we'll move on to the next fight here. Damir, let me get this. Damir Begovic. Taking on BJ Bland, Quicksand Bland here. So this one is I think in some ways kind of mirror the last fight, where we've got, I think, the very impressive stand-up guy in Demir taking on the more well-rounded, kind of grappling-centric guy in BJ Bland, I would say. I guess City Kickboxing, or at least at times has been on City Kickboxing. Demir continues to fight on MMA Lab. He trains in Tennessee, but then he goes out and does his camps out in Arizona. He's done his last 3 fight camps out there. And right off the bat, I think Demir is looking like he's in the best shape of his career, just based on the weigh-ins and everything that I'm seeing leading up to the fights. He's looking like he's really worked on his conditioning. In some of his fights, he's kind of had a softer kind of body, looked like he's gassed towards the end of fights. I think clearly he's starting to take his strength and conditioning more serious. Very, very good stand-up fighter as well. Aggressive on the feet. Grappling-wise is definitely where he's going to have some issues, but 27 years old, out of he's originally out of Bosnia, but he's been in the States, I think, most of his life. And then New Zealand's BJ Bland, 16-10. He's been around. He hasn't really had too many great wins. I went back and watched his fight with Callan Potter. He made Callan Potter look like a world beater in that fight, which, Callan Potter's a solid guy on the Australian New Zealand scene for sure. And, with, BJ, not sure what I can really say. I just think that he's, needs to follow the game plan I kind of said about Dufort in the last fight. And while you were kind of saying Arut's not going to have trouble with the grappling in the last fight and going to be able to be on the feet, that's how I feel about Demir in this fight. I think he's going to be able to grapple well enough to keep it off of the ground and on the feet. I think he's going to have some advantages, possibly be able to finish him. Throws a lot of kicks, throws a lot of really solid combinations. I just think on the feet he's much better. And I think training at MMA Lab, he should be ready for what BJ is going to come with in this fight. I like Demir quite a bit in this spot, and I like him to keep it on the feet and get a finish.
Yeah, Demir, 4-0 amateur career with 3 finishes, starts his pro career off with 3 wins, 2 finishes, and then runs into Luis Pena and Jonathan Pearson back-to-back fights, gets submitted. But, those aren't just like the regular guys you just kind of bump into 3 or 4 fights into your career most of the time. So I feel like we can give him a bit of a pass there. Those are 2 pretty tough fights at that level. And yeah, like you said, training at the MMA Lab for this fight, that's a really good room. A room that I like, a lot of guys that I think are really good training out of there. And his most recent win was that knockout over Nathan Williams, who we saw in PFL. I think that's a good win. He's got some good kickboxing, and he's had a lot of success with that, including in that fight with Luis Pena. I thought he looked good on the feet there. Grappling has been the weaker aspect as a pro so far, but those submission losses, aren't, like I said, aren't guys that you're just normally going to bump into at that stage. So for Habigovich, has actually had lots of grappling success earlier on the amateur circuit. So I'm inclined to agree with you in the fact that I don't think he's going to have too much trouble with the grappling here. Like, is it going to be kind of the weaker aspect of this? Is he going to want to be grappling? No. But I do think that he's going to be good enough to be able to keep this one on the feet. BJ Bland has, the 16-10 record. Not the greatest, but he also is training at a good room in City Kickboxing, coming in on 3 straight wins. But the level of competition on those wins have been pretty low. And
he got knocked out by Jason Poney.
Yeah. And yeah, that was one of the 3 straight fights that he lost before that little streak. On the feed, he's kind of like an in and out fighter, tries to land a few shots, get back outside, has been knocked out 4 times. But he has 8 submission wins in the grappling. So for Habigovich, is definitely going to need to be careful there, but I feel like he's just a lot more technically sound on the feet. I think he's going to have to be aware of the submission threat, but I just think he has all the tools to win this fight. The line is getting closer on this one. It's like minus 125 for Habigovich, I think. But I still like the favorite here to win.
Yeah, so do I. Honestly, I think I feel great about Asamov's, but at that price, I think for Habigovich is my favorite single bet on the card, actually. So, yeah, I think it should be a good fight. Looking forward to seeing particularly how Demir's improved. Yeah, BJ, I think that we kind of know what we're getting from him, and if it works, then, that kind of shows that Demir has not progressed too much. But we're at the main event here. Bruno Miranda, formerly of Tiger Muay Thai, now with Nova Union in Brazil, was a main training partner of RDA for his camp. RDA looked okay in that last fight, and good guy to be sparring with for basically 8 weeks. Just like a lot of really, fun highlights you can see of Bruno. He's a great kickboxer. His jiu-jitsu is solid, offensively at least. The questions, I think, really come with conditioning and just ability to piece it all together. Carson Frye here out of Oregon recently opened a gym. His corner, so while like Bruno Miranda's corner is going to be Nova Union, like very, very high credentialed corner, Carson's corner is his wife and his friend Travis Williams, as he put it. So a little bit of a different approach. Carson just opened a gym as well. So I get it. Like you got to run a business, you got to do your thing, but that definitely is a little bit concerning for me here. I don't think Bruno Miranda has those sort of other aspects of his game taking away from, his game, but at least it's a gym. So he's, definitely going to be in there. He's going to be conditioned. Carson has fought at featherweight before, but he has fought at lightweight for a good amount of his career as well. 9-4 overall. He's pretty well rounded. He's a freestyle kind of fighter. I think he would describe himself as. Won last in May of 2021, getting the win with FFC. He had a fight with Achilles Estremadura, who just lost on the Contender Series, but before that was a really hot prospect who was finishing most of his fights, and he did go to decision there. So pretty tough, guy to go to decision with there, but got finished by Matt Jones and Nathan Stolen. And other than that, not too familiar with the fighters on his record. He's got good. He's good everywhere. He's not great anywhere. I would say. I think that his best, bet in this fight is to, mix in the takedowns at points, make Bruno work the cardio of Bruno. Don't allow Bruno to stand at range and fire kicks at you, because otherwise you're going to be in a lot of trouble if you're fighting this fight at kickboxing range. I think it's Bruno all day. But I do think that there is a realm where Carson's able to, work the cardio, work the pressure, and work the pace, and kind of grind out a decision. Also, I do think that Bruno tires and wears as he goes on, and at times, leaves himself susceptible to takedowns and being controlled on the ground. I'm going to go with Bruno Miranda, but I'm not super confident in it, to be honest. Probably not as confident as a lot of people who are signing with him, but I just think that overall, training with RDA, training with Nova Union, he's very physically impressive as well. I just worry about the one-dimensionalness of him. And so what's your thoughts on this fight?
Yeah, this should be an interesting fight. Bruno Miranda, 13-3 fighter. And yeah, you mentioned it. He's at Nova Union now, was at Tiger Muay Thai for a long time. And most of his pro experience came while he was over there training in Asia. A lot of fights on Road FC. He's currently on a 4-fight win streak. Not really the best competition over there in a lot of his fights, to be completely honest. But his last win over Ricardo Telloni is a really good win. That's a good veteran win to have on your resume. That makes me feel a little bit more confident that he is able to do this to guys that are a little bit better. And he also, to be fair to him, has been getting a lot of these guys out of there. You want to be seeing a lot of finishes when you're fighting guys that aren't really the best level competition. You want to be showing that there is a gap between you and the opponent. But he has been finishing all of his losses in 2 of those 3 worst submissions. Strength of schedule hasn't been super tough, but it does seem like when he gets a little bit of a bump up, he has had a little bit of a trouble in the grappling exchanges. Striking wise though, 77% finish rate, 8 of his 10 finishes are knockouts, has some kickboxing experience, some Muay Thai experience. And you mentioned it with the kicks, man. Really good technique. He's able to throw them really hard. And, you can just tell like what kind of base he has when you see him throwing those kicks. Body shots as well are pretty thudding, pretty hard. And this guy just looks like a pretty well-built guy as well. The cardio, potentially a question mark. Doesn't get into the later rounds that often. And now Frye, on the other hand, coming off a 2-year layoff last year and wins his return fight, gets a rear naked choke in the first round. He's 3-3 over his last 6, but in his last 4, he's 3-1. So good momentum trending upwards coming in here. He has a nice win in 2016 over Brandon Jenkins, who also was a pretty good striker. That's a nice win. Also in 2015, for whatever this is worth, he beat Zach Zane. Throwing that out there too.
And there we go. The Zach Zane win is always good to see.
Yeah. Not
was it a finish?
I can't remember, to be honest.
Okay, I'll have to check because you gotta finish Zach Zane if you're gonna beat Zach Zane.
Yeah, but Frye, he isn't really much of a finisher,
Right.
but he has been finished in 3 of his 4 losses, 2 times by knockout. That loss to Esther Maduro, that's a tough fight. Went the distance there, so that's nice to see. Seen some decent striking from him, and we've seen him do it against Brendan Jenkins, who's a pretty good striker. That was a while ago, but seems like he has nice combinations to the body. He has fast hands. He'll go to the body and head with kicks as well. Pretty decent movement inside the cage. Seen also good offensive grappling, and he's aggressive when he gets on top. I do think this is a closer fight than a lot of people probably think, and that is being shown by the movement of the line. I like Carson Frye. I think he's better than your average 9-4 fighter. He's a legit guy. I think he has some good wins, but I think Bruno just has the ability to change the fight on the feet. I'm going with Bruno Silva to win this one. I just feel like he has
Miranda
more weapons, and he's just more dangerous. Yeah.
Bruno Miranda. You said Bruno Silva.
Oh, if it was Bruno Silva,
I would also take Bruno Silva over Carson Frye.
Give me Bruno Miranda this time.
Yeah, if Bruno Silva was a -185 against Carson Frye, I'd be telling you to hammer it. Bruno Miranda is a -185. The line has gotten a little bit closer. I do think that at the end of the day, there is a spot where I see Bruno's head on the back of the mat as time's running out and him just exhausted. He's very muscular, very well-built fighter, and that could really serve him well for the first 7.5 minutes and really serve him poorly the last 7.5 minutes in a quiet, as Edward Martinez mentions, a quiet arena where I think sometimes that cardio can get to you even more. You're going to be hearing your breaths. You don't have anything distracting you. And they asked, what are thoughts on no walkout music? I'm fine with it. Earn your walkout music. I don't think they should get walkout music or an interview until their contracts are won. And then Visceral, no, I'm not on Bet MMA as of now. I don't even know what that is. And then Ryan Schmidt. Ryan! He said Aaron, so I'm just saying Ryan back. But that's going to do it for the PFL Challenger Series. Overall, I have one underdog in Michael Dufort, and then you got the chalk on your side. So chalk week, chalky chalk, put it together and get yourself a slight plus money if you're me. Otherwise, enjoy the basketball, enjoy the fights. Everybody, CFFC is on tonight. Do you have any thoughts on CFFC before we take off?
Honestly, I didn't look into CFFC either, to be honest. Some good fights. Like, it looks like a good card, but I didn't do any tape for it.
Yeah, I didn't either. I'm going to try to do a little bit. I mean, Paris Artis is on the card, a few other Jorge Molina, and a few other people that I recognize the names, but honestly, I might just kind of sit back and enjoy the fights tonight and then I have my everything all set for the Cage Warriors tomorrow. I'm really excited about those fights. And then, I hope my Israeli wins. Go Jews. Agree. Go Jews. As a fellow Jew myself. But for Aaron, the dog, for Lucky Locks picks, until next week, when we're back with whatever last division is left with PFL. Oh, is it heavyweights? I can't wait. I can't wait to see what they drag up for that. But for Lucky Locks and Aaron, the dog, enjoy the fights. All the breakdowns are on the channel. Timestamps will be up shortly. Peace out, everybody.